Hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast of my channel. Um, this is kind of awkward for me right now because, as you might have noticed, I have not been uploading this style of videos for, let's say, about 3 to 4 months now. In case you were wondering what happened, well, I had an exam, well, my final exams actually, and here in India, the final exams, even though there are only five, they take up about a month due to the distribution. Anyway, that aside, welcome back to the podcast of my channel. Today we are going to be discussing a topic that I have almost never seen anyone discuss, and that is Asgore and why he hired the people that he did. And now, in case you're confused by what I mean by Asgore hiring particular people, what I mean is that the people that he hired directly into positions of power, such as, Undyne, the captain of the Royal Guard, Alphys, the royal scientist, and even though you may not have agree with this, probably Sans into whatever position he has. There is no official like name to the position of what he does, to my knowledge at least. Now you might be wondering, some of these seem a little, you know, a little too obvious as to why he did the things that he did, but for some, I wouldn't argue against that. Uh, so let's start with the simplest one first. Undyne. Well, this is by far the most easiest one to explain. Undyne is a direct pupil of Asgore, and she is as such he. Sorry for the stuttering. It has been a while. As such, he would know that Undyne is very well versed in combat because he is literally the one to teach her that. That, along with the fact that even though Asgore does not want to wage a war against humanity, he probably realizes that humans are not exactly going to be all kind towards monsters in the event that they fall down into the underground. I am looking at the genocide route here, and yes, he is absolutely right if he actually thought that. So he hires someone like Undyne because, well, she does not have, uh, you know, much moral problems with murdering humans. But at the same time, she is not exactly um, someone who is too like rigid in her beliefs either. The best example of this is, well, in the pacifist route, when the moment she realizes that humans are actually good, like for example Frisk, even and though we do not befriend her directly, she spares our life when we give her the water and in the heartland region and all of that. But not to mention that Asgore probably in news who again Undyne has a big heart, and also she is a honorable warrior, which is to say, even though her soul mode, the green soul mode, would literally leave someone defenseless, she would still give them a shield to defend themselves because that is the honorable and right thing to do. Cool. And she is so honorable in fact that she does this in the genocide route as well, even though by all means she did not have to give a mass murderer the means to defend themselves. So yeah, uh, to put it simply, Asgore or hired Undyne based on the fact that even one, she is a very good combatant. She she is not as um hesitating towards killing humans as he is, and three, she still has a big heart. So if worst case scenario, as in a nice human would fall down, they would probably not have too much problems with Undyne. Other than the fact that she would probably kill them if they do not have much time to interact. Anyway, now moving on to the more or interesting part as to why Asgore hired Alphys. Now, this actually always sat uh, somewhat confusing to me. Based on the canon lore from Undertale, Asgore hired her after seeing her built a new body for Mettaton, and all evidence, including Mettaton literally saying his original body was the Mettaton Neo body, he, as in the human killing machine, indicates to him, to Asgore, again, someone who does not want to murder humans, hiring someone who literally just built a murder machine. This, I think you can see why this did not sit well with me until I was playing Undertale Yellow, or well, I was listening to the soundtrack, and then it hit me. The reason Asgore hired Alphys was not necessarily because she built a human in killing machine. She also did something that, according to Asgore, wasn't nearly impossible. What I'm referring to is she created a machine with a soul. In case you do not know, uh, based on later dialogues from Alphys herself, uh, according to most of the public, no one literally knows that Metatron is a ghost inhabiting a machine. All of them think that Metatron is simply just a very advanced artificial intelligence robot that Alphys created. And this also probably extends to Asgore because, well, the entire point of them, Alphys and Metaton concealing this fact is to impress Asgore. So it makes a sense then that as the Asgore would hire her because, again, creating a soul is no simple feat, I will tell you. So we know this because of two facts: one, Omega Flavi, and two, Asriel. I mean, well, those two facts are basically the same fact anyway. We know that both of these entities were nearly, very near godhood. Omega Flavi was one soul away from absolute godhood, and Asriel, well, he did achieve it anyway. We know that in the end, they were not able to make a soul for themselves, despite the fact that they had immense power. Omega Flavi, if he could, would have absolutely tried and created a human soul, or at least a monster soul, and would have repeated doing that until he got to the power of seven souls. If he actually could do that, the fact that he didn't do it tells me that it is probably not possible. And two, during the true pacifist route, Azriel is really scared of going back to being flubby and being soulless. Yes, considering he did a lot of things, such as retaining all the monsters' souls safely, breaking the barrier, and possibly reviving the human souls. I mean, well, the humans back to life. It is, if he could have created a soul for himself, he absolutely would have as well. The fact that in both scenarios he does not do so indicates that creating a soul is impossible even for a godlike being such as himself. Which brings us back to Alphys. Yes. According to Asgore, who again probably already knows that creating a soul is no easy feat, because again, he has been alive since long before well, not long before, we don't know actually. He has, well, bottom line is he has been alive since before the monsters were banished from the surface, which means he he and he also knows about it takes particularly 7 souls to break the barrier. All what I'm trying to say is Asgore probably knew that, you know, it was very difficult to create a soul artificially. It makes sense that then he would hire her because he thought that Alphys has to basically be like, she is a very good expert in soul science. And it makes sense then that the first major assignment he gives to her is, you guessed it, the true lab experiments. The goal of which, in case you did not remember, was creating souls that are strong enough that they can be used to break the barrier, because Asgore does not want to murder humans again. And before you say that Alphys does not do a very good job of that, I would argue that she does a better job than anyone could have expected. She successfully, he, all and without any confirmed, you know, contributions from others, discovers that human souls and monster souls are differentiated by the human soul's determination. She successfully is able to extract the determination from said human souls, and she is able to determine that monster souls can be made stronger by injecting them with determination. And in case you might say, yeah, yes, but the true lab was, a failure. Well, there was literally no way that she could have predicted them that that could have been a failure, because one, this was the first time in monster history that we know of that someone actually, he was able to, eh, she was the first one to extract the, sorry, I had to cut the recording for a short time. Anyway, she was the first to extract the determination from human souls. So again, no one would have known that injecting them into monsters would have done anything. And two, they did not have any reason to believe that it would cause any such well, abnormalities. Yes, remember, uh, we have at least two confirmed instances of a monster absorbing a human soul, and in both cases, well, the only difference between them and the normal monsters is that they are just a lot stronger. In case you're wondering, I said two instances because first one was the whatever monster absorbed the human soul back in the surface, because again that's what caused the whole story of Undertale. And second was as real because you know the story, right? Anyway, um what I'm saying is, in both these cases, nothing happened to the monster's soul. I mean, happened to the monster's body that would indicate that, injecting determination or something related to the human soul would affect the monster badly. So Alphys had no reason to believe that it would actually cause us any, the melting of monsters and such. In other words, the True Lab experiment, yeah, Alphys might have been a little underqualified for that, but there is literally no way that anyone could have predicted what would have happened. Um, Anyway, that brings to my conclusion on why Asgore or hired Alphys, because in summary, um, based on his point of view, she was a base. She did something that was deemed to be impossible. He was impressed because, again, it was impossible. She thought that it was impossible. Well, so yeah, that's it. Now, for the one that uh, I have the least evidence for, but also a lot of compelling points for, which is just to say that I have circumstantial evidence. Is that what it's called? Anyway, Asgore hiring Sans. Now, now we now at no point is it actually mentioned directly that Asgore hired Sans, but we do have a lot of circumstantial evidence to suggest that he did. The biggest of which is one, and when after killing us for the first time in the judgment hall during the genocide route, Sans says that he did. He says that I think the line was, "Guess I'm very good at my job, huh?" Which implies that, particularly regarding this particular part, the judgment hall, and that is his official job description. And in case you say that maybe Undyne hired him, um, I actually did I actually posted this theory regarding, you know, the Asgore hiring these people, and a Reddit user by the name of yes, u slash Alex the Mechanic Fox actually brought up a clean evidence that for Sans, and as Undyne only knows about three of his guard posts, and he's actually surprised that he he was hired at four of the four royal guard sentry positions. And again, they also point out that there are very less monsters that could have hired a monster without telling Undyne, directly into the royal guard. And you know Asgore is probably one of those few monsters. um, I will just put the link to that Reddit post uh, con- down in the description so that you can read it. My original theory is there too. If my stuttering is a problem to you guys, sorry for the stuttering. By the way, I have been not doing this for a very long time, so breaks and all of that. Anyway, one. So again, to summarize, one, and uh, it was not Undyne who hired him, so someone would have had to hire him. So otherwise Sans would not have said this dialogue. And also, I would like to point out this right now that Asgore and Sans share a suspicious amount of things that are only unique to both of them. Namely, both of them have the ability to dodge. Both of them have both of them are the only monsters that are able to interfere with the battle menu directly during battle. And both of them, other than the exception of Flubby and yes, let's see here. Yes, the shopkeeper Timmy are there. Other than those two, Asgore and Sans are the only two monsters to ever acknowledge resets directly. And might I add that for the first point of dodging, Asgore seems to be better at dodging than Sans is. According to the story from Undyne, he actually dodged her multiple times, and knowing Undyne probably in a row, because she has a habit of throwing a barrage of spears in someone's direction. Meanwhile, Sans could only dodge once properly before succumbing to not being able to dodge, as evidenced by the you know when we finally land a hit on him, he actually dodges our first attack, and then only during our second attack does he actually go down. And even with the thing of interfering with the battle menu, Sans is only able to project his bones into the battle menu to do damage to us. Meanwhile, Asgore goes just a little further than that, and literally breaks one of the main buttons of the entire battle, the mercy button. And not to mention that there is actually a possible time and place in which these two could have met. And I am talking about through WD Gaster. In, Now, all signs point to, even though science we don't know exactly how, Sans and Gaster and Papyrus are probably related somehow. We don't know how, but they probably are related. The Gaster Blasters. You know this stuff, right? Anyway, since Asgore is, very empathetic towards mon- every one of his subjects, and Gaster in particular was his previous royal scientist, and according to his Gaster followers, as he actually fell into his own creation, which is basically like a work. He succumbed to a workplace hazard. Asgore would have probably visited Gaster's family members to console them and all of that. So that gives you know ample opportunity for him to have met Sans and possibly Papyrus. And him meeting Papyrus is also not too far-fetched either. Papyrus, after his battle, says that Asgore is a fluffy pushover, and while it is possible that he is just parroting the words of Undyne, uh, it it is it's not exactly something that Papyrus would normally say to someone above his position, unless he actually met them. Like, I don't know, it just seems out of character for Papyrus to literally call the monster of all, sorry, the king of all monsters, a fluffy pushover, and unless he personally knows Asgore. Okay, now okay, so I have established that at Asgore has the opportunity to hire Sans for something. We know that he has the means because he is literally the king of all monsters, and so his word is basically like his word is literally the law. Yeah, that's how monarchies work. And now we are going to get into motive. Why on earth would Asgore hire a lazy bones such as Sans? Well, there are actually a lot of reasons than you might expect at first glance. One, let's go back to the reset thing that I mentioned earlier. We know that Asgore is aware of the resets because, well, when we once he kills us, we can talk to him, and the flavor text mentions that Frisk actually mentions to him that he killed them, as many times as we have died. Anyway, that and the flavor text after that says that something along the lines of Asgore nods solemnly or something, and which is basically just shorthand for him admitting, yes, I know for a fact that I have killed you, and I'm sorry, but I have to do this. Anyway, so we know that he knows about the resets, and seeing as Frisk was told Asgore that he killed them once, it is possible that the other souls who also probably did multiple times to Asgore, each on their own, one would have said something along the same lines. Not to mention that Asgore would definitely have the deja vu of surviving through multiple resets, because almost every single boss, save for Metatron for some reason, they are in consecutive to true pacifist playthroughs after the true reset, they actually in the corner of their mind they remember that we were once their friend. So that probably definitely applies to Asgore. So with all of that, he probably would have consulted some scientist, and while he knows that Alphys is an expert in soul magic, there is no evidence other than like the one line regarding what is the Metron quiz, that's in which she mentions alternative realities that imply that she knows anything about resets. On the other hand, uh, if you know Asgore, or you know if considering that Asgore had WD Gaster, and he probably knows his family as in Sans and Papyrus somehow, assuming that, and that and well, sorry, my lanes of thoughts are breaking a lot today. It's been a while again. Sorry for the stuttering and all, and all of these mental gaps and all of that. Anyway, assuming that again, Sans and Asgore know each other, Asgore, it is possible for Asgore to know, that Sans has interest in science, so it is possible that you know Asgore consulted Sans with this knowledge and requested him to research research regarding these research and stuff. And I'm just going to throw it out there, although I'm skeptical about it myself. But it might actually be possible that when Sans says our reports show a massive anomaly in the time space continuum and all of that, he's not actually talking about Alphys or Papyrus or Gaster, or like many people assume, and he is simply referring to Asgore. Again, Asgore is the only other one to mention research. I mean, acknowledge research directly. So it's not too far fetched either. Okay, so I have established that Asgore has the means, motive, and opportunity to Asgore to employ Sans as a scientist. But what makes me so sure that he would have hired Sans for the position of defending against humans and all of that? Well, there is also surprisingly a large amount of evidence for that either. I mean, sorry, that too. So, and that comes in the form of, again, at some point, if Sans and Asgore met, Asgore, being the combat you know expert that he is, probably would have noticed that Sans' stats are the lowest of the low. And while he would have, and being that he's very open to taking on pupils also, because, like, from what we know, Undyne was just like a random child that once challenged him, and that was enough for him to take her on as a pupil. So he is very open to taking people on as pupils. So it makes sense that if a monster, if you ever met a monster that has very low stats, he would train them in skills that they would need to survive in the underground in the case of something happening, such as a human attack. What I mean to say is that Asgore would 100% be the type to teach a monster who has low stats the ability to dodge an attack. We know that no, he is the he has sorry we know that he has the ability, again mentioned by Undyne. So it is not far-fetched that he would teach it to, again, a low stat monster. And with the fact that he again already hired Sans for the scientific work, it also makes sense that Asgore would you know or know about Sans's personality very nicely too. Namely, we know that he would know that while Sans does not necessarily like humanity, he is also a somewhat laid back individual himself. Namely, he does not get involved in violence unless, well, things get very dire. He is also not one to, you know, do something emotionally immature such as himself. Namely, as Gore, when confronted with a killer, namely the human during the genocide route, even though Flowey warns him, he is unable to, well, concept the will to attack us probably partially because he does not recognize as the human, but he does recognize that uh, we were the one that flaw we was talking about, but he still does not attack us, or probably has his guard down because he is weighed down by the guilt of uh, killing six probably innocent people. So it makes sense then that he would hire someone independent of him as a last line of defense in the case that a human that is a legitimate threat to the monsters arrived in the underground. And in case you're wondering why he would not just teach these tricks such as dodging and battle menu interference to Undyne, well, I have an answer for that. Undyne would probably be against learning those, or at the very least, she would be against using tricks like that in a battle. Um, for example, with the thing of dodging, her literal soul mode mechanic hinges on her not giving a moment opportunity to her opponent. And she literally even says that the only way anyone is going to get past her is by learning to, what's the quote again? Yes, learning to face danger head on or something like that. So it would be quite hypocritical of her to then use dodging during her battle style. Again, Undyne is the same fish lady who decided to give uh, mass murderer a fair chance in a battle, even though she had every single opportunity not to. Who she would probably not hurt, you know, want to dodge an attack. She would probably be an honorable warrior and would be willing to take the attack, even if she knew that it would kill her. And in the same way, she would probably hate the idea of destroying a battle button and or interfering with the menu in any way. That's just not something Undyne would do. Who Asgore probably knows this. So, and given that he can't just you know go around teaching all these very uncommon battle tactics to every single monster in the underground, he probably figured that teaching, since he thought since one of these techniques that is dodging already, he might as well teach the rest of them to Sans as well. And seeing as Sans is a level-headed and you know a cool-minded individual who has knowledge of the resets the same way he does, as he it would make sense that Asgore, knowing what Sans is capable of and what knowledge Sans has, would hire him in the case of a legitimate human danger to protect the monsters against the human. And again, that's a very good idea on his act on his behalf, might I say, because again, he would probably not attack a human with his full force because who- he's already weighed down by the guilt of killing several humans, so he would you know obviously not be he will not be able to use his full power, is what I'm saying. Uh, but someone who has the same amount of knowledge regarding the resets as he does, and someone who is level headed and not emotionally driven like he is as in sense, would be able to face off against a human with his full force in the event of an actual threat. In fact, we know that Sans would have actually done this, even in like Sans just outright says that he would have killed us, if Toril had not made him to promise, you know, if Toril made him, if Tor, you know, if if he hadn't promised anything to Toril, he would have killed us. Um, so yeah, there you go. In summary, he Asgore hired Sans because he probably met Sans through the connection with W.D. Gaster, and he has every opportunity to hire someone without the knowledge of Undyne, because he is the king. And more importantly, he, he Asgore has motive to teach all the tricks of battle, such as dodging and the battle interference things, to someone other than Undyne, because Undyne is not the type of person to be willing to use those techniques. To someone and who is independent of him, who would and someone who is level-headed and not emotionally driven, in order to carry on duties that he himself would not be able to do, because he is clouded by the guilt of killing 6 humans. On top of this, Sans also has the knowledge of resets just like Asgore does. So again, with all of this, that is why I believe that Asgore hired Sans. So with that, we come to the end of another video. So thank you for watching. Sorry if I stuttered a lot. Again, I have been not done this recording for I have not recorded anything for a solid 2 or 3 months. Um, anyway, thank you for watching, and bye for now.